A very good morning to all of you gathered here. I, Ananya Kumra, and
Hi, Himanshi Chabra.
on behalf of Department of Commerce, extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed speakers, respected Principal, Professor Pramila Kumar, revered faculty members, staff, and fellow students to Cascade 2022, the annual fest of the Department of Commerce of Kargi College.
The department supports 1,000 students, aims to provide a holistic learning environment with an eclectic mix of academics and co-curricular activities. The department inspires students and motivates them towards breaking the class ceiling to make long strides in the diverse fields of commerce.
Members of the Commerce Association work diligently to provide practical knowledge and managerial skills throughout the year with the able guidance of faculty advisors. Various activities such as Cascade, the annual fest, the Commerce Week, lectures and workshops by eminent speakers, career counseling sessions, and educational trips are organized by the department every year. Commerce students also participate in the prestigious Gargi Pathfinder Award, a research based competition at college level. Over the years, Cascade has been host to engaging and creative discussions on contemporary topics such as fintech, climate change, CSR, and this year the theme for our panel discussion is Work from Home, the New Normal, a Boon or a Bane for Women.
In the last 2 years, our lives have changed immensely as humankind has ushered in a new era of living called the new normal. The way we work, eat, sleep, and interact are no longer the same. Pandemic, a word that seems to have made a permanent place in our vocabulary with its implications leaving a greater mark. With our lives confined to four walls and living rooms turning into offices, every individual underwent changes in one way or another. Though the intensity varied, the new normal left none unaffected.
However, one section of the population that has been and is greatly influenced is working women. They have been hustling to maintain a perfect balance at their homes and work. COVID 19 amplified women's unpaid work burdens, with women being the prime caretakers. Striving for work life balance in these challenging times became an even more challenging task. A study revealed that although the spouses of working women shared responsibilities of household and children, still the main onus rested on women's shoulders.
The Deloitte Global Report, Women at Work, a global outlook finds that nearly 80% of surveyed women indicate that their workload at work has increased as a result of the pandemic. At the same time, 66% of women report having the greatest responsibilities for home tasks, and more than half of those with children say that they handle the majority of childcare duties. The mounting responsibilities are taking a clear toll on their physical health, mental well being, and career ambitions.
With work from home, the new normal, a boon or a bane for women being the theme of Cascade 2022, we aim to explore the challenges that this particular section faced and also the economic opportunities that came to light as a result of the uncertainties, reminding us that every grey cloud has a silver lining.
It is immense pleasure to host you all this morning for an insightful and informative session with the hope that you take away as much knowledge as possible. I take this opportunity to extend an invitation to our patron and principal, Professor Pramila Kumar, to address the audience. Please, ma'am.
Dear Ms. Deepshikha Kumar, Ms. Manvi Sharma, Ms. Shweta Shroff, Ms. Shikha Verma, Dr. Anjana Dev, Dr. Sheila Dubey, my fellow colleagues, dear participants, and my beloved students. Good morning to you all. I extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this annual festival Cascade 21-22, organized by the Commerce Association, themed Work from Home, a Boon or a Bane for Women. Gargi College, an institute of higher learning, started its journey at a very humble note in 1967 to promote higher education to young girls. Here, excellence is a tradition and sincerity a passion. And we believe that productivity is not a matter of chance. It is owing to commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. This is possible because the faculty is distinguished, staff is dedicated, and students are committed. Behind every successful event, there is an untold story of patience, diligence, and hard work, which is so evident here. I congratulate the organizing team for their efforts. Education is not merely an information stored in the brains of students and stays there unused, unutilized for the rest of their life. There has to be life making, character making, assimilation of ideas. Think about a room with various instruments like dholak, tabla, sarangi, sitar, guitar, harmonium, etc. And each instrument is being played by an expert with his best composition in its own way. What will happen? इतने सारे म्यूजिशियंस बैठे हैं अपना अपना फेवरेट इंस्ट्रूमेंट लेके और सब अपनी अपनी ही धुन में बजा रहे हैं. कोई आपस में तालमेल नहीं है तो क्या होगा? शोरगुल, a headache. Then comes a musician to synchronize all these players playing various instruments. This will turn this noise into a wonderful, soothing melody. This magical turn of noise to music, problem to solution, and confusion to clarity is so very significant. This is what we aim while organizing such events. This year has been challenging again as the battle with coronavirus continues. The world and its people have adapted to this new way of life. In the last year, technology became indispensable, and while we were all far apart, we still came together. It has a unique, it was a unique year on the whole. We have been in our houses for over a year and a half now, and while the pandemic has taken away a lot from us, it has also taught us valuable life lessons, especially that of empathy and kindness. Kindness is an essential quality that human must imbibe. The world is more interconnected than ever, and every action of every individual has a tangible impact. Work from home culture has become a new normal, which can be seen both as a boon and a bane. On the negative side, going out, interacting with peer group, exchange of emotional energy, etc., at workplace has surely been limited. Another challenge is that an altered work landscape, how to work together without being together. However, on the positive side, women equipped with skills and qualifications but were restricted to their family responsibilities can now get better opportunities to showcase their talent, especially in smaller cities. We have a panel of experts which throw light on this very, very significant topic chosen by the association. With this, I wish a grand success to this event and once again wholeheartedly welcome you all and wish you meaningful, thought-provoking, yet enjoyable interactions during the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your words of inspiration and encouragement, ma'am. We shall cherish them forever. The department brings out its biannual magazine, Commercent. Its journey started way back in 2004 as a newsletter. Students are encouraged to contribute articles and participate in various competitions held by the magazine committee. The current issue is centered around the theme of Cascade 2021 to 2022, work from home, the new normal, boon or bane for women. The magazine covers different aspects of pandemic-induced new normal, that is, work from home, and how it affected the mental and physical health of women. We will now officially unveil Commercent for the academic year 2021 to 2022 of our honored patron and principal, Professor Pramila Kumar, esteemed speakers, respected teacher in charge, Dr. Sheila Dubey, Reverend Commerce Association, and students. We sincerely hope that you enjoy reading the issue.
Now, I would like to take this opportunity to invite our panelists for today's panel discussion. Ms. Deepshikha Kumar is the founder and CEO of Speakin, an edtech platform operating in Asia. She is an alumnus of University of Delhi and Indian School of Business. Ma'am has won many prestigious awards: Economic Times Most Promising Women Leaders 2021, Google Digital Women Award in Leadership 2020, Top 100 Women Entrepreneurs by the Ministry of MSME Government of India 2020, to name a few. Not only this, Ms. Kumar is an eloquent TEDx speaker, an author, and a member of the Women's Wing of Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We welcome you, ma'am.
Our next panelist is Ms. Manvi Sharma, who is currently working as a consultant psychologist at the Secret Ingredient Mental Health Care and is an independent mental health practitioner. She is an alumnus of University of Delhi and has been actively involved in facilitating training workshops and sessions for aspiring mental health professionals. She did a one-year training program in narrative therapy from Darwin Centre, Australia, which asserts that people are experts in their lives and adopt collaborative and client-centered approach in therapy space. We welcome you, ma'am.
Next, we have Ms. Shikha Verma, a global happiness coach and a women evangelist. She has 2 decades of corporate experience across MNCs like Wipro, Honda, Yamaha, and Panasonic. Ms. Verma has mentored hundreds of students, women professionals, and homemakers on leadership skills and well being across colleges, institutes, and corporates. We welcome you, ma'am.
Our panelist is Ms. Shweta Shroff-Chopra. She is the principal associate of Bangla and Company, specializing in partnership to control advice and motivation in legal practices from College of Law London and Masters in Law from London School of Economics and Political Sciences. Ma'am has won awards such as ALB Asia 40 Under 40 Lawyers in 2021 and Economic Times 40 Under 40 Business Leaders 2020 to 2021. Being an eloquent speaker, she has spoken on various topics in the past, ranging from mental health, diversity, and inclusion. We welcome you, ma'am.
We would now like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Anjana Nera Dev, Associate Professor of English at Gargi College, University of Delhi. She did her MPhil from the University of Cambridge and her PhD in Indian English Poetry from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Delhi. Ma'am has published extensively in national and international journals and contributed articles to books. Her published books include 4 textbooks commissioned by the University of Delhi, an edited bilingual anthology on Indian literature, An Introduction 2005, Business English 2008, to name a few. She was awarded a major grant in aid for a project on the Ganga in Indian literature and folklore by the Indian Council for Social Science Research. We welcome you, ma'am. I would request ma'am to kindly take over from here and moderate the panel discussion.
Am I audible to everyone? Please confirm.
Sound is a little feeble, Anjana. You can increase the volume a little.
That better? Tell me if that's better.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Perfect. So, good morning, everyone. Professor Kumar, Dr. Sheila Dubey, friends and faculty members from the Department of Commerce and from other departments, students from the Commerce Association and others. Of course, our 4 very esteemed panelists, Deepshika, Manvi, Shikha, and Shweta. It is a great, great pleasure for me to be a part of this one. Normal. I am not intimidated but inspired as I look forward to hearing the views of all 4 of you both personal as well as professional. So, this is how I thought we would do it. Maybe I'll invite you one by one to speak for about 10 minutes. We can then have a discussion amongst the four of you, and time permitting, maybe open it up for a few questions from the others who are attending this event. Would that work for everybody?
Sure.
Great. So if I can request Deepshika to maybe please initiate the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Such a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Professor Kumar, and the entire organizing team at Cascade to having extended this wonderful invitation. It's extremely nostalgic to be back at. I would say the larger Delhi University. I graduated from Maitri College, and incidentally, my sister graduated from Gargi. So we always used to have these comparative conversations. But it's wonderful, wonderful to be here. Um, I think the topic that you've chosen today, Honorable Principal Dr. Dev and my fellow panelists, is extremely pertinent. And I think while the world is now opening up into a new horizon, a renewed horizon, if I can say, post the pandemic, but personally, I think the biggest thing that the past 2 years and the work from home have done it. See, for women especially, work from home was always there, right? I mean, there were a lot of options, right from the startups like Byju's and the White Hat Juniors that you had heard of, and some of the other ecosystems. And erstwhile, you had Amways and Aeons and some of those players or Tupperwares, creating avenues in a quasi work from home setup. For women. But I think, in particular, what has happened in the past 2 years is that work from home is not seen anymore as a suboptimal job opportunity. It has created a massively levelized playing field for women who were managing different parts of their lives, whether it is personal, professional, children, parents, in laws, family, and their own self. It has created a beautiful canvas where women can compete more effectively, whether it is financially. So if you in fact see, I mean, I run a company where we hire people very, very at a very fast pace. And the number one impact is that the salary disparity has gone away. So you actually there is no more premium left to someone who's coming into office versus somebody who's working from home. In fact, it's the other way around. So it's purely based on meritocracy. And in fact, I was also having a discussion on D&I on a larger dialogue. So we have a concept called Asia Dialogues, under which we take larger conversations which are currently relevant across different Asian countries. And if you see the fabric of different countries, I mean, India versus a Singapore versus a Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and more, you see the change that has happened is massive acceptance of diversity, and of course, starting with gender, or thought process, or where you're coming from of demography. So it's not just the second big part is that the age disparity. So woman is one, but the younger women, the millennials, the middle-aged women, the more senior leaders who have garnered experience over years and decades. So that disparity, by virtue of your being different, or by virtue of being a so-called a non-stereotype professional demography, has gone away. Massive advantage, massive advantage, especially for women who've been working forwards. Number two is what we also see here, particularly in the corporate world, Madam Principal and the esteemed moderator, is the acceptance and change in terms of the kind of roles that women are getting now. Again, there was a definition of a certain roles being able to be delivered from work from home, certain roles which were just not for you because you're delivering, you're working from home, or you're sitting in one place and not in office, etc. So you see that opening up as well. So it's no longer just the academicians, you're no longer just the receptionist, you're no longer just the HR Spock. You're more than that. And that has again created a massive level of opportunities. The third development that I can see happening around me is the massive influx or uh, a push towards creating the larger ecosystem which will support the further development of both working from home as well as working from outside. So initially, I think a lot of conversation went about saying that, you know, both the husband and the wife are working from home, but the wife still gets to do all the cooking, still gets to take care of the kids, still has to clean up. I think that has also changed a bit. So you see ecosystem talking about it, people talking and acknowledging that it's an equitable uh, place, it's an equitable platform where both men and women need to take the same role, as well as the ecosystem around them, the support system, whether it is, you know, people at home, whether it is people that you hire to build and support your journeys, your support system. So all of that, I think, is also developing more and more, and the acceptance of the entire concept is coming in. So I would personally say that this concept, or the new normal, or the work from home as we call it, I think it's a definite boon for women and the larger professional diaspora as well. Uh, and I think also it'll become a bane in three different cases, if I can point out. Number one, when you don't have the right support system, people who, or the system acknowledging that your work is as important as anything else. But that's, I think, a larger issue, definitely nothing to do with work from home. It's a larger alignment bit. The second is that you coming forth. So a lot of women assume, sit back, and accept things in a status quo manner. I think this is where we as women need to come forward and voice out what our needs are, and how we can bring in everybody to contribute to create a more level playing field. And trust me when you say people listen, and when you say with conviction, people will listen, but you have to say it first and not assume things for yourself. And the last bit is that I'm extremely excited that the prejudice in terms of what you are meant for, so that is the prejudice that we have to win over as women internally. Uh, we don't have to stereotype ourselves to roles, to situations, to a specific kind of thing that we are meant for. I think it is for women to learn, unlearn, and move forward to explore and experiment with what more can we do. And the bigger and better dreams will shape up thereon. So that's all that I had, Dr. Dev, as an opening statement. Back to you.
Thank you, Dipshika, for that lovely, lovely equipoise between the boon and the bane. So, the scope, the roles, and the ecosystem. And for me, the biggest takeaway, I think, is what you mentioned in the need for women to have agency, to take control of their own lives, and to speak about them, to demand, if you like, in a variety of ways that the ecosystem does create a new normal for them, right? So we have been thrust, I think, into this new normal, but I think now we can demand that the new normal adjusts itself to us as well, as all of us negotiate the challenges. Thank you so much, Dipshika, for a lovely beginning. We'll get back to you in a bit. May I now invite Manvi to share her insights and her experiences on this with us? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, I hope all of you are doing well. Well, I'm a little overwhelmed with my fellow panelists because I guess I don't want to sound ageist, but of course, I mean, I'm an early career practitioner, and I think I'm going to be speaking about a little bit about my journey because to imagine, I think work from home has really supported women to reimagine workspaces. That's something which really worked out for me, to imagine that okay, I can start my own practice. I can work as an independent practitioner while being an early career practitioner. So I had been working in, like, I was holding some jobs in my hand, and I think I do remember when the first pandemic wave had hit. Um, I felt quite directionless. And of course, there was a huge fear because I had left my city and I was in a new city. So the fear of what if there's a pay cut? How am I going to really get through? And this big move that I took of leaving my house and moving to another city. Um, but I think the organization that I was working for was very kind. They did not go ahead with any pay cut. But I would say it did open a big possibility for me as a practitioner to even imagine that I could start my own practice. I think in the morning, I was contemplating a lot. What is it that I'm more in favor of? Is it boon or is it bane? And currently, I'm in Pune and I'm house hunting. So in the morning, I made up my mind. Oh, come on, it's a boon. How can it be a bane? Because I'm not even in my own space. I found a little corner to be able to show up here. So what really comes into my mind is, oh, it's a bane. But having said that, I also want to acknowledge something, which is I'm a cishet, able-bodied woman from hailing from an urban city, and I think acknowledging that privilege is very important because it opens possibility. It's an ableist capitalist society, patriarchal society, and um, to be coming from a place, to be coming from my social locations, they do play a lot of difference in the opportunities that I can avail and I have access to. So I really want to acknowledge that because let's face it, all of us have a privilege to be able to show up here with internet access. So that's something which I have also been going around with, that who are these women that we're talking about also? Who are these working women? What about sex workers? What about people who are involved in domestic work? Um, so that's one point that I'm contemplating with, because the first thought that did come into my mind is that who are these women that you're really talking about? Are we talking about women who are hailing from urban cities? So that's a question that I am also putting it out there for my thoughts also to echo and for all of us to maybe ponder a little bit more over. Having said that, I think a very interesting observation that I wanted to share with all of you when I was back home was all of us were working from home. And the patriarchal setup and the gender role, that even when you're working throughout the day, you are the one who has to make tea for everyone. That's an observation that I had, that hey, I'm also working from, I'm working from 12 to 7, and the kind of work I have, there's a lot of emotional energy and exhaustion that this work takes up. And yet I don't have the privilege that somebody else, another person who happens to be a man who's been in the house, could even offer a cup of tea. So, this idea that women have to do it all, I don't think they need to do it all. It's a very gendered, stereotypical concept. But I think that's something that even I, as an individual, is grappling with. For me, it's a bane. It's a sure shot bane because I live by myself. I'm not married. I have, the only responsibility I have is for myself. So it works. It's worked really well for me. I have been able to work from home from different cities. There is no logistical charge that I had to invest in. So there was no capital per se. The only capital that I had to invest in was my laptop and a very good internet access. I think that's been my capital that I had to invest in, that I'm still investing in. Otherwise, I feel to even think of starting my own practice with only 3 years of experience. Because in the field, whenever I would talk to people, I got to hear that, oh, you have to be in the field for 15, 16 years, and then only you can begin your practice. And somebody like me who likes to be in different cities, I've lived in 3 different cities. It seemed like a far-fetched possibility, and I imagine myself only working under someone. not very satisfied, not having that much autonomy. So at this point in time, in this moment, it's a bane for me. That's something I am really strongly feeling towards. Of course, it's a boon for me. I'm so sorry. But I think when I go back home, my perspective does change because I'm living in a family setup, which is a minuscule of the larger society. So I think I would like to pause here for a moment and pass on the mic to my other fellow panelists.
Thank you so much, Manvi. And I want to begin by thanking you for personalizing the topic for us so well by giving us a wonderful insight into how you personally have seen perhaps more than one side of this new normal. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you also for reminding us about the subjects whom we are debating today. Are we only talking about ourselves? Or are we, if I can use something that Thomas Kuhn reminded us about, am I always in the danger of falling into a universalist paradigm when I assume that what is true for me should be true for everybody else? Or should I remember with sensitivity that paradigms, the best paradigms are relativist, that everybody comes with their own set of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges, experiences, and money and privilege, of course, are determiners. But I think the range of determiners, as we have realized, and Manvi, you will know this much, much better than me, are practically infinite, right? Whatever determines the happiness or the opposite of an experience has infinite inputs that can go into it. So thank you so much for reminding us about that. And I hope that your glass continues to remain half full and you do see many, many opportunities opening up for you. And I hope that ecosystems, which I'm sure will benefit from your intervention, also adapt themselves to your requirements. So thank you. We'll get back to you. Thank you so much for that lovely, lovely insight. It's my pleasure to now invite Shikha to share her experiences and views with us. Shikha?
Thank you, Anjana, and thank you to all the panelists here. And thank you to Gargi College, Madam Principal, for organizing this discussion. I want to build on what Manvi just mentioned, with respect to her own experiences and how the flavor of the day changes, when she's with the family. Of late, as an organizational development expert and a coach myself, I've come across innumerable such situations over the last 2 years where people have had different things, women have had different things to say about work from home. So it kind of compelled me to think on a broader spectrum because initially I was a part of a corporate and now I'm in the open space, dealing with society, with students, with women who are trying to be entrepreneurs, with successful entrepreneurs, as well as, entry level to top management professionals as well. So there's a wider range of audience that you get to interact with. That's the strength of, working from home. So pretty much in sync with what Manvi said, that it started off as a great equalizer, opening up, a broader spectrum to me and allowed me to learn, grow, develop myself as an individual and groom myself as a professional too, as a coach as well. Having said that, there were a lot of limitations, with respect to infrastructure, with respect to the silence that you need when you're tuned into a session like this. It's not easy. We're talking India, okay? There are people living in one room houses with their entire family and their kids around all the time. Okay, so there are people who are dealing with challenges with respect to their own self discipline. There are people who are dealing with challenges with respect to space, and there are people who are dealing with challenges with respect to their own relationships also, and there are multitude of them. I'm sure my co-panelists would have their own share of experiences around this. Having said that, I look at this subject from three broader perspectives. One is individual, the other is from an organization's lens, and the third is social and economical. From an individual perspective, I see it more, work from home is like pizza for me. When was the last time we all wanted the same thing or the same pizza or the same topping, right? We all like it different. We like the different crust. We like it with different toppings. And that's what it is, for women across the globe. We are all unique individuals with very different circumstances. The earlier we realize that it has to be customized, it has to be user friendly, it has to be pick and choose for them. If we give that choice to women, you're not just empowering and enabling them to become stronger part of workforces. What you're doing is you're giving them the power to make more meaningful decisions in their life, which impacts not just their well-being, but actually their own households, the communities, and the economy at large, right? So the benefits trickle into all of it. uh, we must realize that we have huge potential to contribute towards the economy. We're like 48% of the population. And if we are empowered, if women are working and participating, we hold the potential to contribute close to what, $28 trillion by 2025. That's a huge amount of contribution that women alone can make. And that calls for us to realize, how do we make it work? So just like Manvi, I was also thinking in the morning, is it a boon or a bane? And the only conclusion I could come to was perhaps it's neither, as a thumb rule. What we really need to realize is we all want to work from anywhere and at any time. That's what we need. We need workplace fluidity. We need people to be able to allow us or trust us as individuals to make mindful decisions during the day. So there may be days I have responsibility back home where I want more time with my family and I can barely work for 2-3 hours. There would be days when I have more freedom, more time, more liberty in hand, where I can be more focused in my projects. Now, the situation varies from day to day basis. So, making thumb rules also as organizations, I think, is not serving the purpose, because we go back saying, okay, you work from home 3 days. Now, here there is this couple who's constantly into a fight. Okay, there are conflicts back home, there are relationship issues, there are a lot of responsibility medically that women are catering to for their in laws as well, right? So given their circumstances, if we were to look at from the organizational perspective, what is required is to give flexibility, make it a matter of choice, and that way you enable your women to make their pick as and when required. Yeah, with some maybe broader framework to it, it will work wonders. The sad part is, being more privy to organization culture, I have to say this, we're dealing with leadership pollutants today. Okay, pollutants like a lot of them trying to control people. Okay, unnecessary gossips in the organization. That's what we were dealing with 2 years before, right? There is a lot of psychological safety that we're talking about in organizations. Why? Because there is hostility. Okay, people, they wake up in the morning, they don't want to go to office because there's toxic work culture. So, to my assessment, work from home has also come in as a culture antidote. It's kind of helping us. It's creating that space. It's creating that well-being for you as an individual, and you can make your choices. Okay, there's less of control and more of collaboration today in organization. They are compelled to work that way. They don't have a choice, right? So that's the freedom that it's allowing people to have with respect to this kind of arrangement where you're working remotely, right? Despite all the odds, we understand that women need more trust and respect as individuals because they are more psychologically, physically invested at home. Like Manvi said, you can't forego that role. That's a given. We're living in that kind of a society. What do we do about it? And men on the other side get the liberty to not do most of the things while they're sitting under the same roof. So we get to figure out how that works in the long run and whether it's really going to serve its purpose, from a career perspective for women. Talking about the economy and the social structure, I think the element that I want to highlight is the happiness quotient. Being a happiness coach, it's paradoxical the way women happiness has consistently declined over the last decade or so. Okay, there's also research done by Betsy Stevenson. She clearly says last 35 years, women happiness has nosedived consistently. Despite all the empowerment, despite all the right to vote, right to education, we've been able to achieve so much with respect to empowerment. But the happiness quotient is only reducing. We know the reason why. The reason is fairly simple. We're not focused on our well-being. Our relationships are bleeding. Our families, our social fabric is getting affected. So I think the responsibility is bigger than we have maybe ascertained so far. Work from home is a tool. It needs to be utilized in the best possible way in the interest of every woman out there, because they're at the center of every household. If they're brimming with life and energy and happiness, everyone around them will be well taken care of. Yeah. So that's my submission on that, honestly, and I'll hand it over to my next co-panelist.
Thank you, Shikha. And I'm going to go backwards here because I have to say that I was alarmed as well as very surprised about the decline in happiness quotient that you talked about. It seems kind of counterintuitive because one would imagine with all the feminist movements and laws that are in place and discussions about equality, empowerment, respect, sensitivity, I would have expected the opposite to be true. So thank you for reminding us that things don't work so logically in human beings. 2 plus 2 doesn't always make 4. Sometimes it makes 79, right? So that's one. So thank you for that. The second, I want to appreciate your breaking up the issue at the individual, organizational, and socioeconomic perspectives, because as a working woman, these are three very important dimensions of my own life, right? So I do have an individual persona. I work in an organization, fortunately blessed with a fabulous leader, but not everybody is so lucky. And then there is this whole socio-economic network and culture within which I operate, which is full of opportunities, but also full of, to use your words, pollutants and toxicity, right? So thank you for reminding us about how much goes into basically creating a higher happiness quotient for myself, and how it is we still have a long way to go, I think, before we can achieve that.
Absolutely, a long way to go. Together we
Thank you.
can.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Shikha. May I now invite Shweta to please share her insights and experiences with us before we open up the discussion?
Thank you, Dr. Dev, and thank you to the Commerce Association of for inviting me. There's very little left to say after such discussion from my co-panelists, but I just wanted to maybe make it a little personal and share about how I have coped in the work from home scenario. Keep what is it that I want to get rid of? Way of being. I think from the perspective of the pandemic, when things started off, the great uncertainty that everyone faced, I think, was much worse for me as a working mom, partly because I had additional responsibilities which I would normally hire for. For example, I would have a nanny, but we couldn't get people in and out. I would have a cook. We couldn't get people in and out. So those additional responsibilities, naturally fell on me. And having those responsibilities required a lot more organization, being more organization. And at a very personal level, I would like to share that, that felt like a loss of agency. Because when you are working, when you leave the house and work outside, you are your own person. And within the home, I was mom, I was a wife, I was the chief organizer, of everything. I was the cook, I was the teacher, I was everyone, all rolled into one. And, in the initial phases, it resulted a lot in a loss of identity. Because at least when I stepped out, there was an identity that I had. Um, However, on the other side, I found that, it is actually, it gave me this wonderful opportunity to get to know my children. And I know this may not be something that, this young audience associates with, but this is a very much of a part of a working mother's life. And you're always ridden with guilt when you're a working mother, thinking, have I done enough? Have I been there enough? Are they going to be fine? And things such as that. So having the time to get to know my children, you know having been at home, was a wonderful blessing, and something that, I don't think the several years went before, all on one side and the last 2 years on the other side are balanced. The balance is clearly in favor of the last 2 years in terms of building a stronger relationship within the family. It changed small things. For example, with as a working mom, I would try and, get home as early as possible, but, sometimes, rather oftentimes, I won't lie, as a corporate lawyer, I'd come home just in time for bedtime. Now, being at home, we eat 3 meals at the dining table. It's it's the conversations that have come out of those dining table conversations which makes us feel more together as a family. you know Everybody is in this rush and this hustle when, you know um you are you were sort of stepping out, everybody's trying to manage things, but just being able to savor something so small on a daily basis really enhanced my life. In addition to that, I think the time that I ended up saving, being a working from home mom, was something that I channelized for myself once things settled down and a rhythm was formed. So you'll see in the background my artwork. And this, I had never held a brush till the pandemic arrived. But I learned to make time for myself, which is something I wouldn't have done in the ordinary course, because I would be spending 45 minutes going to work, 45 minutes coming back to work, rushing in and out for things, and never really thought that I would have the time or the energy to devote to something creative. And over the time, I realized that, there were a couple of things that you need to feel good, and the happiness factor that Shikha mentioned. One is to do something for your mind. I read a lot more. The other is to do something for your body or your creative juices. I painted a lot more. I played a lot more. What working women have missed, and I find this is so prevalent, is that you're just switching hats all the time, that you forget to play. And play is critical to happiness. So I brought in a greater factor of play into my life as a working from home, which has been very much life altering. And finally, I would say that the third thing which really worked for me, is in terms of building my happiness factor, was to do things for others. Even though you're remote, even though you're stuck in your home, there are things you can always do. It's about the initiative that you can take to do things for others. So, from my perspective, I started our firms. We are a large law firm of almost 1,000 people now, nearly 700 lawyers, located across India. And we built a support team to deal with COVID, and that's something that I led. And, we were supporting people through the medical emergencies, getting them oxygen, getting them hospital beds, supporting them with seeking medication when there was a grave shortage. We lost a couple of colleagues, we held their memorials. It was about bringing life into the organization. Because organizations can easily become nameless, faceless things. So from the perspective of what could you do for others, it was the small things. And I've realized that it's always the smaller things that make the bigger differences. It has to be small enough to change, but big enough to matter. And those things have really helped. The other thing that we realized is mental health is really suffering. There were kids. We have an age spectrum of say 22 to 60 in our organization, and the 22-year-olds had not lived at home for the last 5 years, and suddenly they were home with their parents. They couldn't go out, they couldn't drink, they couldn't, like, they had to reacclimate to being at home for extended periods. There were people who lived with roommates in other law firms, for example, in our case, and there were severe confidentiality constraints. So we had to, sensitize people around those things. There were people who were living with their parents and in-laws and have to educate kids, but in small spaces, like Shikha mentioned, and those adjustments had to be made. There are people who lived all the time with people who they don't really like, and that's really sort of mentally strenuous, especially if you have difficult relationships in your family. Um, just acknowledging and knowing that these are the realities of the people, we've had to change our definition of what productivity means. It's no longer the traditional metrics of, number of hours clocked versus number of hours billed and so on and so forth. That is an important factor. But also to appreciate and understand that people can only be so productive if the environment in which they operate is supporting them. And there are going to be challenges in that environment. People are going to have sick children and sick pets, and that's going to affect their mind space because they cannot physically leave their home environment and come to another environment and switch off. Just sort of, I think it has resulted in a deeper and more empathetic culture as far as our organization is concerned. And that I think has to be the key differentiator for organizations as a result of this pandemic, to acknowledge and appreciate and fundamentally make people seen and heard. That is the fundamental human need, irrespective of gender. And whilst, there are gender stereotypes and there are challenges for the women, because of the patriarchy in our society, if we were to boil it down, it boils down to this: is about being seen and heard. And if, as women, we are to center our decision making around this theme about being heard and seen ourselves, having our children being heard and seen. It's so easy to turn around and wag a finger and say, you should do this way because I say so. Or having our colleagues who report to us, or our seniors, realizing that, for example, our seniors are battling more battles than we are as juniors, and how can we step up, to help them. I think the culture has become more symbiotic as a result of the pandemic. So while work from home was one aspect of the pandemic, I think what it created or has created is something which has altered the way we are going to live life, I hope. And whilst we are all returning to work and in the physical space now, my sincere worry and my sincere hope equally is that we cling on to what worked and discard what didn't. Because it's very easy for us to go back to the same physical spaces and revert to the same behaviors. The challenge is to superimpose the new behaviors in the old spaces and change those narratives, to challenge our own unconscious biases against things. If people are not coming to work because, they still have to deal with various aspects, that is not what we need to be seeing, not FaceTime. It has to be much more. It has to be about what is the output. Are they mentoring? Are they providing value in another different way? And as women, we don't have to necessarily fit into the mold of the sort of, what created by the white male, effectively, because that's what's got adopted by the brown male as well. But we can define our own, and that requires taking space and being unapologetic about taking space. Women are apologetic about taking space. Women do think about, it will inconvenience someone, it will make someone feel bad, it will, affect somebody. But what about you? Why are you always on the sort of guillotine, ready to be sacrificing? And I've learned that, being selfish is not a bad thing. And that is a narrative that has to be challenged, particularly in the Indian society, because you're brought up as women saying you must be selfless, put everybody and their aunties in front of you. But what does that do? It fosters self-doubt. And as women, we are fighting our self-doubt to push ourselves forward. And as women, we must support other women to challenge their self-doubt. Because unless and until we do that, whether we work from home or we work from office or we work from a factory, there is nothing that's going to change. So these are sort of my thoughts. I think that the pandemic has brought a lot of good things. Now is the critical moment, the crucible, where we make the decisions about what we want to hang on to and what we want to abandon. And as women, we must make those choices affirmatively and not sort of, what is left over. Because when we go back into the normal, or our men go back into the normal, it's very easy to flip back. It is now which is most critical for us to assert ourselves and to hold on to what we believe and what we need, and not to apologize for having our needs. So I think that's how what I feel about, this whole paradox that we are in, work from home, bane or boon. That's it from me.
Thank you, Shweta. I'd like to appreciate and spotlight, among all the wonderful, interesting, and meaningful things you said, I'd like to spotlight maybe 2 or 3 of them. Number one, I want to begin by really appreciating the candor with which you shared your own experiences of the last 2 years. Thank you so much for trusting us enough to do that, and for giving us a little peek into how you negotiated, balanced, and thrived, and shall I say, played in the last 2 years. So thank you for that. Thank you also for reminding us about what I, as a literature student, have always valued, that play is so crucial to our, not only to thriving, but even to survival. Because without play, there is no survival. There's only a mere existence. So thank you for reminding us about that. Thank you for all the wonderful things that you did to help people during the pandemic. Every drop does count. I fully endorse that every little drop does make a difference and contributes to the ocean. So thank you for that. But most crucially, and this is where I'm going to take the discussion very briefly before we conclude, I want each of you to think about what Shweta reminded us, that, we have to go back to work, right, in different ways. And what is it that I'm going to carry with me? Because not all jobs, unfortunately or fortunately, not all jobs have the facility of allowing me to work from home. So there are many jobs which will require us to go back into the formal workspace again. What is it that we can carry with us? So maybe if I can go back to Dipshika again, and then come to Manvi, Shikha, and then finally to Shweta. If we can think about this question that Shweta raised, about what am I going to carry with me? So is this going to be like a newer normal? Am I going to be the same Anjana when I go back to the classroom in Gargi, right? Or will I have changed in ways that may make my re-entry into the classroom actually difficult? So maybe if we can, conclude our discussion by thinking about that. Dipshika?
Excellent question, Dr. Dev. I think be it man or a woman, the past 2 years have changed us beyond what we even know. I think there are so many unknowns still, and I think Shikha and like as Shweta also mentioned, in terms of the mental health, the psychology of humanity. I think our DNA somewhere in terms of our thought process has changed, and that will manifest over the next, I would say, 2 years or so. Maybe more. We've never seen anything like this. But yes, I think there are three fundamental changes that have happened. Number one is, like my fellow panelists also mentioned, I think we've learned to appreciate what we have. We've learned to appreciate the surroundings. And number two is that my father always says you need to stop and smell the roses. I think all of us were kind of forced to take a pause and be thankful for of what we've been left with, and in spite and despite of. And third is, I think, in terms of whether it is professional or personal, I have always believed that there is no distinction between the two. When you love what you're doing, it fulfills you as a person in totality. So, but I think that the past 2 years have also kind of blurred it for everybody. People are trying to find love in what makes money for them, and vice versa. So that also balancing will happen. So I believe these are the three phenomenon that will happen, in my humble opinion, in the next years to come.
Thank you, Dipshika. Yes, the roses, and we've had a particularly marvelous spring the last 2 years, right? So lower pollution, more flowers, more fruit, more fresh air. So we can count at least some blessings and remind ourselves about those. Thank you. Manvi?
I think having closely worked with people who have had losses, and when I say losses, I would say not just limited to death of loved ones, but even imagined losses for that matter, imagined possibilities, imagined aspirations, dreams. Um, I think there's a lot, it's very important to also acknowledge that there's a lot of collective distress and grief that all of us have gone through and are still going through. There's something what we call post distress. I don't know if this is the post phase because we are still in the middle of a pandemic, let's just face it. So it's very hard to see what the post is going to be like. But the thing with grief is that, the more we talk about grief, the more we start to talk about human connections and love for that matter. And I think it's really increased the importance of human connections and that acknowledgement that how interdependent we all are. We need people. We cannot survive in isolation. Um, those are the two things that I have learned from the people I have been working with very closely. And another thing which is drawing from my personal experience is that um, you know we've usually seen people going to work. I guess now work can come to people with this possibility of I think this remote working hybrid model. So people need not go to work. Work can come to people. That's something I'm really strongly staying with, and I'm hoping it works out. I'm also like going to be shifting to offline practice because there's such a strong need for that human connection. To we never thought as therapists that we'll have therapy online, uh,
True.
and now my clients and I are also going to. We are very thrilled and a little anxious regarding how it's going to be in person. So I think it's going to be quite an experience. But these are the three things that I'm holding on to. I'm staying with, and very curious to see how these things will roll out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Manvi. Yes, I agree with you. And together we can is no longer a cliche, thank God.
Yeah.
It has acquired a lot of resonance for us, I think, for all of us over the last 2 years. Shikha?
Yeah, so I'd like to share something very personal here. I started my personal journey as a coach 2 years back after losing my job. And for me, that stage was very, very critical. After having a glorious past of 20 successful years of career, I didn't know the pandemic was right around the corner, and this is how it's going to bloat out of proportion until it happened. And we were all, seeing a lot of people suffer, a lot of families suffer, a lot of, people losing their jobs day in and day out. And that made us millions of people across the world. So for me, honestly, I felt the moment of realization there was that we're all connected. And the more we realize that, the more powerful you feel from inside. I knew I wasn't alone, and that gave me strength, and the inner calling that I must do something about this, for people. It wasn't about getting a job at that point in time. It wasn't about, figuring out how will I get my salary or income. I just wanted to do something out of whatever I knew in the best possible way. It happened because of these virtual platforms. It was doable because of remote working. It was, like she said, counseling, coaching started to happen online, and so many doors and windows opened across the globe for me. So many possibilities were created just out of nowhere. So I honestly feel that the strength that we have, experienced with this open world and the ability to connect with people at a very fundamental level is very humbling. It's it just takes you back to your root and anchors you very, very strongly that we're in this together. Having said that, it was in these moments that we realize that if we really want to flourish and beat any odd around us in the society, it can happen through mindful decisions, like Swati said a while back. You have to be conscious of what you're choosing to cling on. Okay. And thankfully, my association with a lot of women communities allowed me to understand the self-doubt that she was talking about, that was killing women. When you mentioned how come we're not happy, it's because of our expectations mounting up. It's because our framework of happiness has changed. Back in the day, my mother would be happy, or grandmother would be happy just having a happy family. You and I today, the 21st century woman, is not getting a sense of happiness by just the sense of relationships around us. It's a bigger framework. Our expectations have changed from ourselves and from our environment. So, despite everything working in our favor with respect to empowerment, we're still feeling a vacuum inside because of this doubt, because we don't stand in our power, because we don't, make these conscious decisions that matter. And for me, that's the fundamental rule that I'm going to stick to, no matter whether I work at home or in offices. I may join an organization also tomorrow, but I'm very, very sure these are some feelings I'm going to stick a lot, very closely to. One is allyship, help every woman around me, uplift every woman around me. Two is believe in myself and demand what is necessary, because it's not just my need, it's the need of the society today. We all need to realize, and this is something that happened years back in one of my organizations. So my senior said, Shikha, why don't you choose one thing, either your family or your career? I said, why can't I have both? Okay, and who gives them the right to make statements like that? As women, we need to stand our ground and own the power that we can get whatever we set out for, whatever means something to you. We're not saying every woman out there is cut out to be ambitious and to get to the leadership levels, but the ones who truly mean to, contribute in that sense, must stand their ground. And stop playing the victim card all the time. I really want to throw this out to the audience today that, sometimes women don't realize we play the victim card all the time. Were the disproportionately affected, were the ones impacted because we're sitting in the house doing everything. Yes, we are, but I'll have to say that my counterpart, my husband, has contributed a great deal throughout the pandemic, shoulder to shoulder, and has also helped me to jumpstart my own business as a consultant and a coach. So we can't forego. Situations are different. Men are awakening. They're realizing. They're coming forward. The problem is that the conditioning is so deep rooted. Unfortunately, Dr. Anjana, that it will take us time. But the fact is that we need to cling on to this belief that it's happening and it can change. Okay, men are by our side. There are so many people around the world who I've spoken to in various webinars and sessions in global conclaves who've come up and said this. They want to set things right. They really need to, because they realize the contribution a woman can make, not just to the family, but to the well-being of the society and to contribute to economy, like I said. Unpaid work of women, if you just assign a nominal or a quantitative value to it, we contribute almost 10 to 39% of our GDP already. All the unpaid work that we are doing, sitting in the homes, right? So my submission here, honestly, is that we need to stand our ground, believe in our power, and go out there and demand whatever we require, like Shweta said, and believe in allyship. No matter what, be there for each other. That's what is the biggest strength. And my mantra for empowerment clearly is a happy woman is an empowered woman. If you're not happy, there is no way you can feel empowered, no matter what the world does for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shikha. And thank you also for reminding us that getting lost is not always a bad thing, because sometimes getting lost helps us or reminds us that there are many new paths that we can take, or there are many more mountains to climb, which if I had stuck to the straight and narrow, Robert Frost reminded us about that on the road less traveled. So getting lost is actually sometimes a good thing. So I'm going to give maybe a minute to Shweta to conclude. Last but definitely not the least, Shweta, if I can have a couple of thoughts from you to conclude this wonderful, wonderful panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Dev. I think Shikha put it so well. And, even Deepshika and Manvi made some really fantastic suggestions. But I think for me, in a lot of ways, in this pandemic, I lost and found myself. And that's what I want to hold on to. I want to hold on to my journey. The emotions I experienced, the loss that I felt, the gains that I made. And I want to remain empathetic and constantly thinking about myself in this larger, web or this larger rubric that is there in society and in my organization, and to believe that I alone can make a difference. I don't need other people to do things, or set the situation right. But even as an individual, I can make a difference. And I think if all the young women believed in this, I feel that they will sort of stand up against the odds. Even if it's a low, lows are very important to weather because they teach you about yourself, things you don't know about yourself. And those are the kind of lessons and that journey I don't want to forget this journey that I've been on. And that's what I want to cling on to as I go back into the sort of normal, so as to speak, to remain kind and empathetic and thinking about others, enabling others, creating, co-creating a world that is a better place to work in.
So Deepshika, Manvi, Shikha, and Shweta, I'm going to express my sincerest and profoundest gratitude for this opportunity for me to have met you, albeit virtually, to have shared your experiences, and also to have remembered that it's not just teachers like me in the classroom who can inspire girls with whatever it is that they try and share with them. But thank you for inspiring us and for being a part of this wonderful festival organized by the Department of Commerce, Gargi, and for being such wonderful, unique, exemplary women. Thank you for reminding us that the world is a wonderful place. And if it is people by women like you, more power to us, right? And I'm sure that no pandemic can hold us down if we continue to strive in the ways that you have shared with us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Anjana.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank all the panelists for taking out time from their busy schedules to grace this occasion. Your engaging and thought provoking insights on this very theme made the discussion interesting and fruitful. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to Ms. Anjana Nehrudev for her excellent moderation of the panel. I would now like to invite the President of the Commerce Association, Chavi Agarwal, to deliver her vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Commerce Association, Gargi College, I, Chavi Agarwal, take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to everyone who graced us with their presence and made this event a success. I express my deep sense of gratitude to our panelists, Ms. Deepshikha Kumar, Ms. Shweta Chopra, Ms. Shikha Verma, and Ms. Manvi Sharma for sparing out time from their busy schedule and enlightening us with the theme of Cascade. I thank them for sharing with us the remarkable views on the impact of work from home on working women. My heartfelt thanks to our principal, Professor Pramila Kumar, for her encouragement and guidance in organizing the event. I also extend my thanks to our for her patient faculty advisor, Dr. Sheila Dubey, and guidance. I would like to thank all the faculty members of the Department of Commerce for their efforts and supervision throughout the journey. I also extend my thanks to Mr. Anup Bhardwaj and Mr. Wasim for their technical assistance. A big thank you to all the attendees for being such a wonderful audience. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the dedicated team of the Commerce Association who worked behind the scenes to make this event happen. I hope that Cascade 2022 has been a knowledgeable experience for all. Thank you so much.
I would like to express my immense gratitude to all of you who were present here till the very end. Thank you for joining us to discuss the topic. We appreciate you signing in and hope you had a great time being a part of this panel discussion. We would be resuming with the informal events of Cascade, that is, Bidding Arcadia and the Uncanny Quest at 1:30 p.m., where the shortlisted teams will be presenting their solutions. See you all there. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.